No worries. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Growing Your Business Organically Through Social Media with Dina Watson. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available within 24 hours on the MAPS Group YouTube channel. You may access the YouTube channel from your Zoom confirmation email, and we will share the link in the chat momentarily. Currently, everyone is on mute. We do value group participation, so we ask that if you have a question or any questions for your coach, please type them into the chat box located in the task bar at the bottom of your screen. Your questions will be addressed by your coach throughout your webinar. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching programs in general, please email us at fasttrack, FASTTRACK @kw.com. That's all for me, Dina. Take it away.
All right, thank you so much. Hey, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday. Today, we're going to spend about 30 minutes together talking about growing your business organically using social media. And I have a couple of objectives for this course today. And we're going to talk about those in just a second. I just wanted to say hello, let you know who I am, and give you any kind of ways that you can contact me later if you need it. So first and foremost, I am still in the real estate sales business. I have not completely removed myself from selling. So I'm still here doing this and practicing these things just like you guys are. So I want to throw that out there. Also, I'm a boy mom. I love dogs, all things social media. I'm also a MAPS coach one-on-one. So if you guys have any questions about anything that we are going to talk about today, I'm going to give you a couple of ways to get in touch with me. Number one, the easiest way is always going to be a message on Facebook or through Instagram. My inbox gets clogged up with a lot of random emails, people selling things. Health insurance most often, which is strange because I'm an Army spouse and we don't pay for health insurance. So I think it's funny people try to sell things to me that I don't need to buy, which is great. So anyway, the second thing is going to be Dina Watson at kw.com. So DEANA Watson, WATSON at kw.com. If you really need to get a hold of me, you can probably Google me and find my phone number too, but I'll just give it to you so it makes it easier for you. 615-584-0377. Texts are easiest for me. So if you have any questions after this, that's how you get in touch with me. So we're going to be talking today about how to grow your business organically. We are not going to spend a lot of time talking about how to place ads, although those things are important. That's not the purpose for this particular webinar. The reason that I'm here is because I am an Army spouse, meaning that every few years we get the pleasure and honor of starting over in a new place, moving across the country and transitioning our lives, our families, and most importantly for me, my business. And so one of the ways that I've been able to do that over and over and not actually lose sleep at night is through mastering the art of finding people that will raise their hand and want me to talk to them on social media, specifically to Facebook and Instagram. So if you guys have any questions about this as we go along, just pop it in the chat box and we'll get to those at the end. If you go on Facebook and you're looking for me, this is most likely what it would look like. My picture's a little different right now, but I'm showing you the visual because there is another Facebook page floating out into the universe somewhere, but that's not actually mine. Okay. All right. So let's go into this for a second. We're going to talk about this in phases, and we're going to save the ads, like different posts and ads, for the very end. But we're going to talk about phases and what are the 3 phases that you have to go through in order to build a really strong organic presence on a social media platform. Now, before we jump into this, I do want to say 2 things. Number one, yes, this is important. I know that it seems remedial in some point, but it is pretty important to start here. And number 2 is this could apply to anything. It could apply to Instagram. It could apply to TikTok. It could apply to Facebook. It could apply to LinkedIn. It could apply to literally any social platform. So I know today we're going to talk about Facebook, but don't stop listening if you choose to use another platform. It's literally all the same. Step number 1, we're going to talk about branding. Who are you and who do you actually want to speak to? So the 5 goals I have for you today, and then we're going to go back and start speaking about branding and all the components of that. These are the 5 things I hope that we have in our time together, our short 30 minutes together. Number 1, I want to express the need, and it is kind of urgent for you guys to actually start looking at yourself like a business and branding yourself like a business everywhere, but specific to social media. And I want to explain why that's important. Number 2, we're going to explain the how do you do these things behind the why. Now, I know I'm not going to give you every how and every tip and trick. This is, after all, only 30 minutes long. And so, like I said, if you have questions, you can reach out to me afterwards. We also do have a full-blown 8-week program for this, which I'm going to talk about at the very end, that if you want to continue your education in this, you can take that with me as well. Number 3, I'm going to give you 5 Facebook ad concepts that work and tell you why they work. And these also don't have to be something that you pay for. These could just be 5 posts that you put in your Facebook content calendar for all of time. You don't have to make them an ad and pay for them. Then we're going to talk about navigating the business page versus personal page conversation, and where do you put these different things? Because I know that's a question that I get commonly as well. And then last, I'm going to give you an actionable task daily that you can do to grow your social media presence in your database. So let's start with branding. What are the components of a great brand? But before we do that, I want you to think, and you can pop them in the chat box if you like, what are the strongest brands that you think of when someone asks you about great brands? Pop those in the chat box. I know most of you are muted right now, so go ahead and put it in there or write it down on your paper. I'll also encourage you to realize how many brands, and if someone says Nike, Disney, yep, Coke, which really funny, there's Coca-Cola right here. Well, you can't see this, there you go. The other thing I want you to think about is just how many brands you see on a daily basis. So we're going to do a tiny little exercise. I want you to look wherever you are in the room. Now, if you're driving down the road, just take notice of it. You don't have to actually pop it in the chat box. But I want you to look around the room that you're in, and how many actual brands do you see? Pop that in the chat box. So for me, I see Yeti, I see Coca-Cola, I see a bunch of Apple products, which I'm not going to tell you how many. I'm eating Panera for lunch. I see a whole bunch of other things too. I see maps because I have my backpack down here, Coach because of my purse, all kinds of different things. Most likely you're going to see anywhere from 5 to 10 wherever you sit at all times. Okay. I'm throwing this out there because there are certain things that those brands have in common that make themselves noticeable to you. And before we turn our ears off because we think that we can't be Yeti or Apple or Coca-Cola, I want you to switch for a second and put on the hat of an actual corporation. I know as real estate agents, we don't look at ourselves often like we are a business, but you guys are. And so one of the things you have to think about is what makes these brands actually stick in your head. When I ask you to recall any brand, most of you can come up with 3 to 5 pretty quickly. I see a lot of them here: Amazon, Apple, Coca-Cola, Disney. Those are pretty easy. But what would it take for you to actually be in the 3 to 5 recall when someone thinks of a real estate agent or a real estate company in your area? Here are the 6 components that every single strong brand has with absolute certainty. So as we go through these, I want you to put your hat on as a corporation and think, which of these 6 do you either not have, or which do you not have done the way that they need to be, or which have you really not even thought about? If you have some of these, are they exactly to where you think they should be? Are they something that you actually promote? And we'll go into some of that in a second. But the 6 components of a really strong brand, number 1 is a logo, right? So Coca-Cola has a logo, Disney has a logo, Amazon, Kleenex, all of these companies that you guys wrote in the chat box, they all have really identifiable logos. No one actually has to read to know what you're saying. If you put an Apple up that looks like the MacBook computer, you automatically know MacBook, Apple products, iPhone. If somebody puts up the mermaid lady in the circles, most of you are going to realize that's Starbucks. You don't have to be told that that's a Starbucks logo. The goal is to have the same thing for you guys. So I want you to think about that. The second one is identifiable set of colors. You're likely never going to see certain products in a different color. Starbucks almost always is going to be green. Green, silver, gray, some variation of that. Same thing with Coca-Cola. Almost every single time you're going to see Coca-Cola, it's going to be branded in red. That's their colors, red, black, and silver. So I want you guys to also think for yourself, what are the colors that people associate with your logo? And if you don't have any, that's okay. We're going to work towards that later on. Number 3, every great brand has a clear promise that basically, they have a clear brand promise. Whenever you work with me or you interact with us, this is what you're going to get. Think about Disney, think about Amazon, quick service, Disney, the magical experience. I mean, you could even go into Ritz-Carlton. What's Ritz-Carlton's brand known for? What's Nordstrom known for? These are the promises that the companies deliver to the people when they work with them. So do you have a clear brand promise? The next one is the most important one, and I don't think people drill down enough on it, which is the identifiable target market. What are the people? Who are the people? What are you saying to them? And how do you know that that's actually your target? So I'm going to give you an example, a personal example of mine. Our target market, it would be easy to say that I live in a military community, so our target is military, right? That's what most people would assume. Everybody on the same page with that? Yep. Okay, so instead of stopping there, if I actually stopped and thought, well, who within the military community actually interacts with us the most? I would think the military spouse, because the military service member is often off doing whatever they're doing, and we interact with their spouses. We help their spouses find homes, find areas, find schools, daycares, doctors' offices, all that kind of stuff. So then I could say, well, our target market is the military spouse. That's not necessarily true. If you go down one level deeper, what I have realized my brand is the special operations military spouse. Half of my team are made up of not just military spouses, but special operations military spouses. Okay. Now, what that means to you might be nothing, but what it means to me is that's about 2% of the military overall, our special operations forces. Okay. So I want you to think real quick about whatever you think is your defined target market. You can pop it in the chat box if you want and write it down wherever you're sitting. What is it you think it is? And if I were asked to ask you to take it one level deeper, like I went from the military to the military spouse, what is your one level deeper? So I know some of you are not writing because I can see you. So write down what you think your target market is. And someone said country folks. Okay, so take it a little level deeper, because there's country and there's Southern, and we all know those are two different things. And then you throw Western in there and you mess the whole thing up. So actually make sure you're very specific. Now, after you've gone the one level deeper, can you get to a new one? The more you drill this down into a funnel at the bottom, the more you're able to actually communicate effectively with that set of people. So I will share with you, one of the things that we do to hit our target market is we actually volunteer to host events with the special operations community. We do the Green Beret Foundation. We also host events with the Special Forces Associations to meet more people who are like us. That's the target market, but even more importantly, that's skipping to number 6, the strategy on how to reach them. But if I didn't have that specific thing figured out, we would just be hosting events with all of the military, and that's not what we want. So think about, you have your idea. How do you get it 2 or 3 levels deeper than that to find your true niche? Your niche market's what it's called. Now, number 5 is the one I see that most real estate agents violate the most. Okay, this is going to be funny, but not really funny. Your sign will look one way. Your logo on Facebook will look another way. Your business card has a whole different set of colors and fonts. And then you guys take out an ad on a park bench or billboard, and it looks entirely different. Every strong brand has clean, clear design consistency. Everything they're putting out to the public looks visually the same. Why? Because it makes them recognizable. So why am I talking to you guys about this? There are thousands, in most of your MLSs, there are thousands of real estate agents. And if you think about it, we are not only competing with other realtors, we are competing with Coca-Cola, with Yeti, with whoever pays to put marketing on our social media pages, which that basically makes us less recognizable than anybody else. So the reason I'm telling you guys all this and I'm bringing this up, if you can figure out these 6 things and you're posting on social media with these 6 things, it's easier to recognize you over and over again. Most people will always remember a visual more than they will a word or a name. So having the logo, the colors, and having it all consistent and seeing it over and over and over and over and over again allows you to stick out on social media above and beyond the tens of thousands of other ads people are seeing on there every single day. So I'm not saying this just so it looks good. I'm saying this because if you interact with someone at an event and then 3 weeks later they see that same logo, that same design on their social media page, they will instantly realize that they don't know why, but they recognize it. People who recognize things generally are more comfortable interacting with them. So there's a reason I'm asking all of this of you guys. If we take away all the complication, branding is basically the promotion of a product or service by advertising it. So you have to go farther than just having all of those things. And with the last piece on that slide before is, what's your actual strategy to get yourself in front of people on social? Write it out, put it on a piece of paper. You might not know it. And if you don't know it, start researching it, right? Branding is more than just your logos, colors, all of that. It's also the story that you tell about your business. It's something that people can buy into, they can emotionally get attached to. So if you're thinking, I have a logo, that's great. You've barely scratched the surface here. If you specifically are looking to brand to, and you have a target market of investors, everything you tell a story about on social media should involve and relate to the investor. If you're working with a first-time home buyer, instead of writing just closed or just sold or whatever, you're talking about the spin of that first-time home of the first-time home buyer on that particular post. Okay, we'll get into some of that later, but it's all of this together. It's not just a cute logo. It's not just saying, I want to work with investors. It's not just saying, James, I want to work with country people. Do people feel at home with you and your branding whenever they see it? And can they recognize it above tens of thousands of other things that they're looking at online? Step two is your basically your audience and defining whether your message works for them. So I say all of the time, when you're thinking about this and what it feels like when your message resonates with country folks or investors or first-time home buyers or whatever, I think it's funny. I've never actually had anybody say country folks on there. So it's pretty funny to me. Pretty cool, but pretty funny at the same time. Just because, I would love to see what your branding would look like. And for whatever, anyway, we'll get off that and talk about that later. But have you ever been sitting in a class or sitting at church? Church is the one I have remembered the most as a young adult and a child even. Or you're listening to a book, an audio book or a podcast, and you're literally sitting there like looking around like, is there anybody else here? Because I'm pretty positive you wrote this just for me. That's the way I feel anyway. That's what it would feel like if you had your message so dialed in to your audience that they thought you were only sending that to them. That post was made for them. So some things to think about. Number one, if you guys have never read Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, you probably should. If you actually want to get into this and have people understand what you're trying to say to them and tell the correct story so that the right people it resonates with and all of this stuff, I would encourage you to read the book, but it's Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. But he talks a lot in there about how do you actually take your brand, your audience, and tell a story in a way that compels them to act. Well, first you have to know the who, and then you have to know the how. So if you're defining your audience, that's still in the who category. But if you're able to effectively speak to those people on social media, they will react and respond back to you. They will like your stuff. They'll comment on your stuff. They'll send you personal messages. They will literally be writing on your post, this was made for me this morning. That's how you'll know. So think about some things. If you don't know who your target audience is, or if you haven't drilled it down enough, there are some starting points on the screen and I'll read them off to you. But you also could just do some research on who you currently work with all the time. That's going to be a certain way that you'll be able to know who's responding to you currently. Number one, how old are they? If you're thinking about your target audience, are they older country folks, James, or newer country folks? I don't know. Same thing about the investors. Are these new investors that you're having to educate them, or are they seasoned, where you're having to offer more value? How old are these people? What are their interests? Where are they going to go? If you know their interest, you know where they're going to go. Next, you could also say, what's their socioeconomic status? Do you want to work with first-time homebuyers, or do you want to work with people moving up, or people who have already moved up who want to downsize? Last thing to think about or consider, just to give you some ideas if you don't already know your target, what's the location of their jobs? Where do they work? What do they do? Where do they spend their time? What are their hobbies? These are all things to consider when defining your actual audience here. Now, before we move on, I do want to call a quick timeout just so that no one gets themselves in trouble unless they know they're doing it, okay? In every single environment, there are always going to be things called hot buttons, right? Hot button, I have a degree in politics. So in politics, a hot button issue are things that people either take one stance or the other. There's not a whole lot in the middle. And we're going to take that same idea and we're going to bring it into this class. So when you're defining your target audience and you're defining how you're speaking on Facebook to those people or on social media to those people, Unless you're willing to lose the other half of the aisle, so to speak, or the audience, I would personally tell you to stay away as much as possible from the things on your screen. And we're going to add a seventh one, which would be race or orientation that way, right? Because that's something that's a big deal right now. So if you are sharing things that fall into any of these 7 categories and you're taking a stance on them, I want you to understand that people who don't believe the way that you do are generally not in the middle here. So I'm going to go with this particular one. My husband, God bless him, he's in the military and he is a card carrying member of a particular political party. And he posts and shares stuff like this all the time on Facebook, right? He blatantly talks about it. He does not care. It's his opinion. It doesn't matter. Get off my Facebook page if you don't like it. That's the stance he takes. If I were to do that same thing, 50% of the people in general would not agree with me. And if they don't like what I'm posting and they don't like seeing it pop up on their newsfeed, they're going to unfollow me or unfriend me, correct? What you're doing to yourself when you post about politics, religion, we added race in there, sexual orientation, human welfare topics like abortion, gun control, or any kind of feminism, pro-rights type thing, is while you're taking your stance, which is totally fine, it's your Facebook page, you do whatever you want. I just want to make sure that you know, as you're building this audience of people, that if you're doing this, 50% of those people will choose not to watch what you're doing. And if the goal here is to build a massive business on social media, please be careful of these particular hot button issues that are on the screen in front of you. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. So now that you kind of know who you're speaking to, or once you keep going with this after this class, you'll know who you're speaking to. We're going to talk about the best times and the worst times to post anything. Number one, this is a general statement. This is a national thing. If your area is different than this, that's okay too. Just start thinking about when are people off work and on their phones. But nationally, weekdays between 1 and 4 p.m. get the highest click-through ratings on people who are posting on Facebook. The overall peak time for someone to engage with you is Wednesday at 3 p.m. Now, this is your particular standard time, Central, Mountain, Eastern, whatever. The worst times to post to get engagement are going to be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the weekends. But I will say this, you guys, if you're new at this, the best time to post is whenever you can. I'll say it again. If you're new at this, the best time to post is whenever you can get around to it. If you're pretty good at this and you're wanting to take it to the next level and get a higher level of engagement with people, these would be the rules that you follow. But please give yourself permission to be new at something, to not be great at something, and to not be purposeful yet. Just post something. I often have people ask me, how often am I posting stuff? And we're going to talk about what to post here in a second. My answer is always the same. If you're new, post once a week. If you don't post at all, post once a week. When you start getting pretty good at that, go to twice a week. Now, if you're actually wanting to build a massive business, I'm talking 20, 30, 40 units a year or more, you are going to be posting on Facebook every single day. Okay. And I know that some people, I see you on the screen, you're like, oh God, I don't want to do that. That's okay. But if you don't want to play the game, then you're playing the wrong game, right? This is something that's necessary if you're wanting to build a massive business. The other thing I want you to give yourself permission, you're not playing on social media if you're taking this purpose, if you're doing this on purpose. You're actually lead generating. This is a lead generation strategy if you are doing this with a purpose. So please give yourself permission in those 2 areas. If you're not great at it yet, just post something. If you're trying to be better at it, look at how much you want to sell and post whatever's related to that. So step 1 was branding yourself and figuring out who you are. Step 2 is figuring out who you're speaking to. And step 3 for this whole social media empire thing is actually marketing your message to people in general. So we're going to talk for a few minutes about ads and the types of ads that you will want to place. Number 1, there are 5 common ones that I would tell you that you should be posting in general all the time. This doesn't have to be a paid ad, by the way. Don't just throw things out there, you guys, and see what works. Whenever you're posting ads on Facebook and you're paying for them or not, if you're paying for them, hold your money accountable. But either way, don't just post something like just listed or just sold. Tell a story about what's happening that actually calls somebody to action, okay? And I'll show an example in a minute. Number 1, most common type of Facebook ad or post is going to be the just listed, just sold. So if you guys aren't doing these 5, just get to a place where you can do these 5. If you are doing all 5 of these, figure out how you can make your ad better. There's different levels of people on this webinar. Start where you are and try to move to the next place. The one thing I'll say in this particular category is just quit posting about just the house, like just sold with the property, and there's nobody there, there's no story around it. Instead, consider something like what I wrote below. Sometimes the job I do becomes so much more than selling homes. Mr. and Mrs. Watson were in a crunch and called me after deciding that they were going to step into home ownership. The road was rocky, and you could say, we almost lost this deal 5 times, but at the end of the day, we prevailed and they have the beautiful house. And it's a picture of them in front of the house. The point of this particular ad is a proof of production, which shows people that you're actually not just selling homes, but you're helping families here. So instead of just posting, just listed, or just sold, consider some sort of a narrative around the sale. Number 2, the CMA ad. Basically, we all know what that is. If you want to know what your home is worth, click here, go here, sign up for that, yada, yada. But I want you to think about this one in a different way. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we know what it is. But I want you to think about it in a different way. Number 1, the purpose of this ad is not to list homes. It's not. The purpose of the ad is to get enough people to raise their hand that you know who in your community would sell if they had the right buyer. I'm going to say this again because a lot of you do these, and I hear people all the time say it doesn't work. We get 30, 40, 50 leads and nobody lists, but all they want is CMA. Well, good. That means that your ad's working. They want to know what their home is worth. Now, the other point of this is to have a basic pile of people who are in your pipeline for the future. People who've raised their hands, you have their phone number, you have their email address, you know their home, they've raised their hand and said they're interested in knowing. And instead of giving them the CMA online and just walking away, why not put them on a follow-up plan? You already offered them value first. Don't do this to get listings. It doesn't work that way. It's building your pipeline for the future and building a pile of folks that you can call on if you have a buyer who can't find a home. Number 3, the basic type of ad is what we would call the FOMO ad. And if you don't know what FOMO is, it's fear of missing out. So you're basically talking about really great deals that people got. You're talking about amazing homes that people found. These are the diamond in the rough, telling the story about how to do something that no other people are doing right now. This is also the one of, we got 27 offers in 27 seconds with $100,000 over asking price. Ask me how to do that for your home. These are ads that you create some sort of an emotion to want to work with you. That's just a couple of examples. Fear of missing out is FOMO. This also allows people who you're doing this for, if you tag them, for their friends and family to see what amazing service you offered to their friend. Most likely, people are going to work with someone who's recommended you to them. So if you're posting on Facebook and you're tagging people, we got this great deal, the seller ended up with this great amount of money at the end, it didn't even hit the market, and we had all this interest because of my marketing, yada, yada, yada. And you tag that person who's selling that home, their friends are seeing it too, and now you're creating that same FOMO with their friends. Facebook ad type number 4, I don't know why I held up 2 fingers. Facebook ad type number 4 is the review ad. You guys, we all get reviews. We all get that thing in our email that says, you got a 5-star review on Zillow, yada, yada, yada. And what do most of us do? We screenshot our email and we post it. Instead of doing that, try using Designs in Command or Canva or some sort of other service where you can take Zillow and that branding off of it. You can put your colors, your logo. It's pretty easy. Canva actually makes it really, really easy. Canva is what I'm saying, Canva. And you're posting it on there and telling a story about how amazing that client was or how hard that transaction was or whatever around the review. Having other people talk about how great you are also humanizes your business and lets everybody else brag about you so you don't look like you're bragging about yourself. You know what I'm saying? The other thing that's going to allow people to see is that other people are doing business with you. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm in a new area, I always Google something. So like best restaurant near me or best spa or best hotel or best whatever. And I'm choosing, my personal behavior is that I normally choose the place that has a lot of reviews and has the highest level of reviews, and I read them. That's general human behavior right now. So this is going to allow people to see that other folks are doing business with you. and that they're also having great experiences, because people will always do business at a higher level with those others have had great experiences with. Okay. Number 5, and then we're going to move on from this, is the COVID ad or the virtual experience ad. Now, some people are going to ask, why are we talking about COVID? It has nothing to do with real estate, but actually it has everything to do with marketing. Because I will tell you right now, one of the most Googled phrases or the most Googled words is COVID and virtual. So if you take COVID and virtual and you create blogs or YouTube videos and you tag it appropriately, when you're doing your video and in the tags it's COVID, virtual, home buying virtually, whatever, your video is going to show up with the people who are also Googling COVID vaccine centers or COVID testing sites or whatever. It allows you to use the phrases that are already going on and going viral to put you up and make you as searchable as the virus vaccine center or testing site or whatever. If you're tagging it correctly, your stuff will show up with that as well. Okay. Now we're going to talk for a second about the program, but before then, once I get done with this, I'm going to pull myself off screen share and I'm going to answer the 2 questions I still see are left. But I know that we just basically scratched the surface here, you guys. And I know it's a lot of information in a small period of time. So what I want you guys to do right now is write down one thing that you heard that you either need to do or you need to get better at. And take action around that in the next 24 hours. Even if you don't join me for the 8-week group program, it is fine. Just take action around one thing. You guys, I promise, didn't come here for 30 minutes to do nothing. Like, you didn't come here just to sit here and watch me, right? I'm not that entertaining. So take something that you are willing to do in the next 24 hours to either do it for the first time or get better at it. Write it down and put it in your calendar. Okay. So the group program for this course is called 50 Facebook Sales in 50 Weeks. And the reason for that is that the tactics and the stuff I talk about in the actual full-blown course are the things that I did to sell 50 properties on Facebook, spending no money in a year. When I first moved here, that is factually true. If you want, I can send you the info for it. I have had one person ask for that too. But all of these things are going to be organically driven. We're not going to talk a lot about spending a ton of money here. We're going to talk about how do you have organic presence on social media in such a way that you can elicit a massive amount of sales, because that is something that I have personally done. It is an 8-week group coaching program. We're going to talk about tools, strategies, branding, how to find logos. Like, no matter what level you are on, there's something in the class for you. It is recorded. You do have access to the recordings for 2 months after the class is over. So this will take us right up to Christmas, and you would have 2 months after that point is over to be able to go in and re-listen to the recordings, go back through the workbooks, whatever you need to do. We are going to talk about digital postings like just listed, just sold campaigns, expired campaigns, different type of social content marketing, how to actually do live local type campaigns to get people who aren't looking to buy to at least know who you are. There's a vast array of things in here that we're going to cover. But if you have any questions, you can also send me a Facebook message. I have had people say, well, are you going to go over this particular thing or that particular thing? Send that to me and I will answer it as soon as possible. If you are interested in joining us, it is only $198 for the entire 8 weeks. We do launch next Tuesday at 1:30 Eastern. And if you would like to get signed up for that and you don't have any questions, the link is on the bottom. It's mapscoaching.com/group. And you would look for the 50 Facebook Sales in 50 Weeks group coaching program. But other than that, if you don't want to listen to any, I know you guys can see the questions. So if you don't want to listen to the answers for any of those questions, then you're more than welcome to hop off. And I'm going to answer the last few questions here real quickly. Okay, so what about utilizing corresponding hashtags in your ads? How can we determine the proper key terms to utilize? One of the things that you could start doing is on Google, you can actually look to see what people are searching for in your area. And I would tell you to go in and look at that, because that's the content people are actually actively searching searching Google for. And you can take that particular content and those particular topics and start hashtag strategies around that. You can also look at tags that are trending. You can do that through Instagram. You could also do that through Facebook, where you just, what I have done in the past is followed them and I'll see ones that people have in common. Somebody did ask, where will this be? Within 24 hours, it will be on the YouTube channel for MAPS group coaching, which is actually called Fast Track. So if you go on YouTube, you can look up Fast Track MAPS, MAPS, and it will pop up. Let me see. I think that is it. Would first-time homebuyers count as a defined target market, or is that too broad? Personally, I would tell you that's a little bit too broad. In terms to be like super effective, that's a little too broad. Okay, that is all. How long are the sessions each week? They are 1 hour approximately. Some of them are 45 minutes. Most of them are right up to an hour. All right, you guys, that is all I see popping up on here. If you guys need me, let me know, and I will see you guys later.